Good morning. Welcome back to Near Post Flick on. Arsenal are out of the Champions League. The dream is over for Arsenal. The dream is over for Arteta. The dream is over for Saka. The dream is over for Odegaard. The dream is over for Arsenal fans. For now. Not that the dream is over forever, but the dream is over for now. Arsenal have been dumped out of the Champions League semi-finals. They're out of the competition. PSG are deserved winners and they deserve their place in the final of the cup, of the Champions League. To be fair, I did say it would come down to that first game. Arsenal had plenty of chances in that first game. They had a lot of chances. They created a lot when they had the home advantage, but they didn't make it count. And that's come back to bite them in the arse because if they had taken their chances in the first game and made it count, they wouldn't really need to rely on the second game. And if you're going to PSG's home ground, it's always going to be a challenge. It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, you can banter and you can say, oh yeah, PSG, they're a farmers. They're from the Farmers League and this, that, and the other. But that Farmers League team, they have beaten every single Premier League opposition this year in the Champions League. They've blasted away Man City. They've gotten rid of Liverpool. They beat Aston Villa, albeit a close encounter, but they beat them. And they just did the same thing to Arsenal. They beat Arsenal twice, beat them home and away. So, yes, the League One isn't the greatest league in the world, but at the end of the day, PSG have proved the point. They've been every single Premier League opposition that they faced in the Champions League this season. And let's be honest, they've made it look easy. They've made it look easy. I'd probably single out Aston Villa and say maybe Aston Villa gave them a tough game. I think in the second game, in the second leg. But yeah, PSG, they deserve to get to the finals. And you know what? It will probably take a very, very strong Inter Milan side to stop them from being champions. And I've been really, really impressed with PSG, the way they've gone about their football this season. They've been absolutely entertaining in the Champions League. They've done a lot of good work there. But yeah, Arsenal are out. Arsenal are out. I mean, it would have taken a miracle, and I'm sure you Arsenal supporters would have felt the same, that you would have needed a miracle to overcome that deficit. And Arsenal needed to bring their A game. They needed to be on point, but they weren't. They weren't on point. You've got to call it as it is. The game was always going to go in PSG's favour. At times you could argue that maybe the referee was a bit more lenient towards PSG in some of the decisions that he was given. But in professional football, you can't just rely on you can't rely on the referee's favour. Players have to be held accountable. Your key players have to step up. And I think, seeing as Odegaard was criticised in the first game, I think he played a lot better. He played a lot better in the yesterday. He definitely gave it a better shout, I think. But Arsenal needed a little bit more. Yes, they had Partey back, and again, it wasn't really good enough. It wasn't good enough. You don't want to be too critical of the team because at the end of the day, you can only do what you can. But they needed to do a little bit more. And in the game as well, they did create chances. Saka scored, and I think he missed a sitter as well. But you can't really blame him for that. The ball may have bubbled a little bit, but even if they had scored, they still had to have gotten two goals to win the game, and it was just not going to happen because PSG were that strong and PSG were that good. So, onwards and upwards for PSG if you're a PSG fan. But if you're an Arsenal fan, I know some Arsenal fans are having a meltdown and they're just going crazy, and all the old chants of Arteta out, this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, you should count yourself lucky that you've got Arteta, and he's kind of, he's managed your sides to get you onto this, platform to be competing in the Champions League and to be competing for Premier League titles, albeit maybe you haven't seen the results as yet, but you can contrast that to Man United. Look at where they are. They're what, 14th, 15th in the league, and they are struggling. So at least Arteta has kept you abreast, to a certain extent. You may not agree with that. You may want to see your trophies now. You may want that result, but sometimes success takes time sometimes. So If I were Arsenal fans, I'd just relax a little bit, go back to the drawing board, wait for next season, make some important purchases or some important signings in the summer when the window opens. It's evident that you do need a striker. Arsenal do need a striker. They definitely do need a striker, and not just any striker. They need a renowned goal scorer. You don't need a false nine. You need a proper out and out goal scorer. And if Isak is on the market, I would go for Isak. But Arteta is not stupid. He knows what he needs to do. He can see the strengths and weaknesses in the side. And you could just imagine if Arsenal had, and you have to bear in mind as well that they did have injuries as well. You've had some key players missing like Jesus and Havertz as well. And perhaps maybe if those two were if they were available, you might have seen a different result. You might have seen a different Arsenal. Credit to Marino. I think he stepped up and he's done whatever he's had to do. A makeshift striker, albeit, but he's done what he's had to do. So I don't think all is lost. You just got to take the positives from the negatives. But you turn on you turn on social media and some Arsenal fans are just having a meltdown. They're just screaming out, Arteta out, Arteta out. No, I'm like, yo, chill out before you bust a vessel. Just relax, relax. I think Arsenal will come again. I think they definitely will do, but they've got to make the right recruitments in the summer, and that's down to Arteta and the Arsenal board to make those right and key decisions. Because they've done well. They've done well. You've got to give Arsenal credit. They've done well. Second in the Premier League at the moment, second last year, and they've got to the semi-finals of the Champions League. I don't really think they're bottle jobs. People will say, "Oh yeah, they're bottle jobs." They did, they bottled it again. They didn't really bottle it. They got beat twice. They got beat. They got beat twice. They got beat by the better team. The better team won, and I'm glad Inter won against Barcelona the other night. And what a cracking game of football that was! I'm glad Inter won the other night as well because I think the best two teams that have been really, really impressive in this competition won, and that actually is in contrast to what Arteta claims. Arteta, when he was interviewed after the game, he said, "Oh, Arsenal are the best team in the Champions League." Or rather, I'm paraphrasing, the best team in the Champions League have been knocked out of the competition. But that's not true, is it? I mean, let's be honest, that's not true. Arsenal have not been the best team in the Champions League. Arguably, you could say Aston Villa probably played better than Arsenal this season, but no, they haven't been the best team in the Champions League. That's not a true statement. I think Paris Saint-Germain have been one of the better teams in the Champions League this year, and I think Inter Milan have been one of the better teams, as have Barcelona as well. But to say Arsenal are the best team in the Champions League and the best team been knocked out, that's garbage. That's bullshit. That's not true. Arsenal have done well, yes. Arsenal have done well, but they haven't been the best team in the Champions League. But again, as I say, you go back to the drawing board, recruit, bring in a world class or a very, very good proven striker, and maybe have another go next year. Have another go next year. Arsenal fans, relax, chill. It's not the end of the world. You'll have another. I think you'll be back. You'll be back again. Arsenal will be back again, and it's only a matter of time before they put things right. But they've just got to make the right signings. And again, you go back to the first game. You've got to take your chances as well. They created chances. They created chances last night as well, but they didn't take the chances. They created a lot of chances when the game was at the Emirates, and they didn't take those chances. Take your chances, and you will be rewarded. You've got to make it count on the pitch. All this talk about, oh yeah, but the fans weren't making noise at the Emirates. That's garbage. That's just flimsy excuses. Professional footballers, you lace up your boots and you do your job. You score, you take your chances, you create chances, you make things happen. You kind of minimize your errors and things like that and just make things happen. You give your all. But yeah, I think PSG were the best team, and they have been the best team over the past couple of games, over the two legs, certainly against Arsenal, yes, 1000%. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go on to win the Champions League. I wouldn't be surprised if they go on to win the Champions League, but it will take a very, very good Inter side for that to happen. So we'll see how that goes. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.